Most people trying to protect their brain are making the problem worse, not by doing nothing, by eating the wrong things while avoiding the right ones. I've reviewed over 400 clinical cases in the last decade alone, and the pattern is unmistakable. The foods doctors tell you to fear are sometimes the exact foods your brain is starving for. Here's the one that surprises even my colleagues. My name is Dr. Elias Thorne. I'm a clinical neurologist based in Chicago, Illinois. I've spent over 22 years working specifically with patients dealing with cognitive decline, memory loss, and cerebrovascular disease. In that time, I've seen more than 3,000 patients over the age of 60 walk into my office confused about what's happening inside their own heads. Most of them had been given generic advice that wasn't targeting the actual mechanism behind their symptoms. That ends today. Let me tell you what we're really dealing with. Inside your brain, there's a network of arteries so fine and so precise that even a 1 millimeter disruption can affect how fast you recall a word, how sharp your attention stays, and whether you wake up feeling mentally clear or foggy. That network, when it becomes compromised, doesn't send you a loud signal. It sends you quiet ones. You start losing your keys more often. You reread a paragraph 3 times and still can't hold it. You walk into a room and the reason disappears before you can grab it. You chalk it up to age. That's the most dangerous assumption I see in my practice. A 2018 study published in the journal Neurology tracked over 6,000 adults between the ages of 58 and 80. What they found was that vascular restriction in the brain's microcirculation, what I call cerebral arterial sluggishness, preceded measurable cognitive decline by 5 to 7 years. 5 to 7 years before you'd score low on any memory test, the problem was already there, building silently. This isn't about waiting until the diagnosis. By then, you've lost years of intervention window. And here's what most people don't understand about why the arteries narrow in the first place. It's not purely about cholesterol, despite what the standard conversation always circles back to. The deeper mechanism is nitric oxide depletion. Nitric oxide is the molecule your arterial walls produce to stay flexible, to dilate, to allow blood to rush through freely. After age 55, nitric oxide production drops by nearly 50% in most adults. 50%. The walls of your brain's arteries begin to stiffen. Plaque has an easier time accumulating. Blood flow slows, and the neurons that depend on that flow, for oxygen, for glucose, for the removal of metabolic waste, start underperforming. Now here's where the food conversation gets interesting. The number 1 most hated food, dismissed by picky eaters, avoided by millions, mocked at dinner tables, is beets. Raw beets, cooked beets, and most powerfully, concentrated beet extract. I know. You may have pushed them off your plate your entire life. But here's what the clinical data actually shows. Beets contain the highest natural concentration of dietary nitrates of any food on Earth. When you consume them, your body converts those nitrates into nitric oxide through a 2-step biological process involving your salivary bacteria and your gut. That nitric oxide then travels directly to your arterial walls and triggers vasodilation, the widening and softening of the arteries, including the ones supplying your brain. A 2010 study from the University of Exeter showed that dietary nitrate from beet consumption increased blood flow to the frontal lobe, the region governing decision-making, working memory, and attention, by a measurable percentage within just 24 hours of consumption. Not weeks, hours, and beets don't work in isolation. This is the biological layering that most people miss. When we look at what the brain's arterial system actually needs to clean, open, and stay protected, we find 3 distinct mechanisms. The first is nitric oxide restoration, which beets address directly. The second is inflammation management. Chronic low-grade neuroinflammation is one of the primary forces driving arterial wall thickening in the aging brain. Curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, has been shown in peer-reviewed research to cross the blood-brain barrier and suppress the NF-κB inflammatory pathway. This is the specific pathway that drives plaque-promoting inflammation inside cerebral vessels. The third mechanism is oxidative stress. Free radical damage accelerates the breakdown of arterial walls faster than almost any other biological process. Quercetin, found in foods like onions and certain berries, acts as a direct scavenger of the free radicals most damaging to vascular tissue. These three mechanisms, nitric oxide, inflammation, and oxidative stress, are the triangle that determines whether your brain arteries stay open or slowly choke off. If you're watching this right now and you've noticed any of those quiet symptoms I described earlier, the foggy mornings, the lost words, the attention that doesn't quite hold, I want you to pause and take this seriously. Not tomorrow, not after the next holiday. Now, the window for vascular intervention is real, and it does not stay open forever. Go to the pinned comment below this video and read what I've left there, right now, before you forget. It matters more than most things you'll click on today. What most people try to do is address one of these three mechanisms while ignoring the other two. They add turmeric to their diet, or they start juicing beets, but they don't address the oxidative damage, or they focus on antioxidants but ignore the nitric oxide deficit. That partial approach is why so many people make changes and still don't feel the difference they were hoping for. The biology doesn't respond to half solutions. Now let me tell you about some of the patients who've come through my practice. Robert is 69 from Texas. He came to me reporting what he described as mental cotton. His words: couldn't hold conversations without losing his thread. His wife was starting to worry. After shifting his focus to the exact compounds I've described here, targeting all three vascular mechanisms together, Robert reported within 8 weeks that he was recalling names again, something that had eluded him for almost 2 years. He told me, "I didn't think I could get that back." His concern when we first spoke was that it was already too late. That concern is the one I hear most often, and it is almost never accurate. Bill is 73, from Ohio. Retired engineer. Sharp man who knew something was off before any test confirmed it. He was sleeping well, exercising, doing everything right. But the cerebrovascular component wasn't being addressed. Once we focused there, specifically on nitric oxide support and inflammation reduction together, he noticed a difference in his morning clarity within the first month. "It's like someone turned the lights back on," he told me at his follow-up. Frank is 71 from Michigan. His challenge was different. Frank had cardiovascular disease in his family history and was convinced his brain symptoms were genetic destiny, unavoidable. That belief delays more people than almost anything else. The science does not support that fatalism. Vascular function responds to biochemical inputs regardless of family history. Frank's experience confirmed what the literature says. He reported notable improvement in sustained focus and what he called less searching when trying to remember recent events. George is 66, from Pennsylvania, youngest of the four. He came in early, proactively, which is the scenario I always tell people to aim for. No dramatic crisis, but consistent minor lapses that told him the trend wasn't going in the right direction. He addressed the triple mechanism early. His outcome was the kind that motivates me to keep making these videos. At his 6-month follow-up, he said his memory felt better than it had at 58. That is not me exaggerating. That was his direct report. The research behind what I explained today converges on one point. I found a formulation that combines exactly these compounds: dietary nitrate precursors, curcumin in its bioavailable form, and quercetin at clinically relevant levels, working together on all three vascular mechanisms simultaneously. The link is in the pinned comment below. I want to be clear about something. I'm not describing a magic cure. I'm describing a biological reality. Your brain arteries respond to specific inputs. When those inputs are present, the conditions for better blood flow, reduced inflammation, and less oxidative damage are created. What my patients have reported consistently is what the mechanisms would predict, and what the research supports. If you've made it this far into this video, you are not someone who dismisses this. You are someone paying attention to your brain while you still have the opportunity to do something meaningful about it. That is exactly the right instinct. Go to the pinned comment below right now. Read what I left there. Don't scroll past it. Don't save it for later. The patients I described today all had one thing in common. They acted when they felt the signal. That decision made the difference. Your brain is sending you signals. The question is whether you're going to listen.